So picture this. It's the early 1980s, right?
Okay, I am picturing it. Lots of big hair, shoulder pads.
Exactly. But also, there were roughly like 400,000 bookkeeping clerks employed across the United States.
That is a lot of clerks.
Right. And their entire professional existence, like everything they did all day, revolved around doing manual math on physical ledger paper.
Which sounds completely exhausting, honestly.
Oh, totally. But then electronic spreadsheet software hits the market. Things like VisiCalc and Lotus 123.
Right, the absolute game changers.
Exactly. A computer could suddenly do in 3 seconds what used to take a human clerk, like 3 days to figure out.
Wow.
So the immediate assumption from everyone was just, well, total collapse of the accounting profession.
People panicked. They thought it was all over.
Completely. But did they all end up unemployed?
Well, no, obviously not.
Right, no. Today, there are over 1 million financial analysts and accountants in the U.S.
Yeah, the tool didn't eradicate the field at all. It just completely transformed it.
Exactly. It completely transformed it. And I really want you, the listener, to keep that piece of history in mind today.
Because we are dealing with something very similar right now.
Yes, because right now, pretty much anyone working in a modern office is staring down a very similar, seemingly existential threat.
And we are talking about artificial intelligence.
Yes, AI. We are constantly hearing that this huge AI tsunami is about to just wash away all white-collar careers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can really feel that underlying anxiety in almost every sector right now.
Oh, you really can.
It dictates how people approach their daily workflows, how they think about their long-term career trajectories,
Yeah.
and certainly how they interpret the daily news cycle. There is just this palpable fear of obsolescence.
Which is exactly why our mission on this deep dive is to look past all that panic.
Right. Step away from the doom scrolling for a minute.
Exactly. We are going to actually analyze the actual mechanics of how work is transforming right now.
Because there is a lot of noise out there.
So much noise. So we are pulling all of our insights today from a single highly analytical source.
Which is such a great piece, by the way.
It really is. It's a summary of a Technology Review article dated May 26, 2026.
Right.
And it's titled A Reality Check on the AI Jobs Hysteria.
A very fitting title.
Yeah, because our goal today is to figure out if this AI storm is actually going to level your career or, if it's just changing the weather patterns.
I love that analogy.
Thanks. And by the end of this deep dive, you will have a much clearer, much more balanced, and honestly, a highly strategic perspective on where you stand in this new landscape.
And it is so essential to approach this by decoupling the sensationalist headlines from the actual macroeconomic reality.
Right, the big picture.
Yeah, because the article we are looking at, it doesn't dismiss the disruption. I mean, the disruption is very real.
Yeah, nobody is saying nothing is happening.
Exactly. But it breaks down the underlying mechanisms of that disruption. We really need to look at why companies are behaving the way they are and why AI is currently functioning as an accelerant rather than a complete replacement for human capital.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the hysteria, we have to look at the headlines that are actively fueling it.
Right, the stuff making everyone panic.
Yeah, and the source paints a pretty stark picture of the current climate.
It really does.
It specifically points to massive recent layoffs at major tech-heavy hitters.
We are talking huge numbers here.
Oh, massive. Tens of thousands of jobs cut at companies like Coinbase, Meta, and Cisco.
Right.
And the article highlights that specific professions are really feeling the heat right now. Software developers, financial analysts, tech journalists.
Which hits close to home for a lot of people.
Totally. But, okay, I have to push back on the idea that this is just a sensationalized narrative.
Go for it.
Because when you see industry titans, companies that effectively built the modern internet shedding jobs left and right.
Yeah.
And simultaneously pivoting all their resources to AI, isn't the panic entirely justified?
It definitely looks that way from the outside.
Right. If Meta is replacing their developers, why shouldn't you, the listener, assume you are next?
Well, because that assumes a direct one-to-one causality that the data simply doesn't support.
Wait, what do you mean?
The article challenges us to actually look under the hood of these corporate announcements.
Okay.
Yes, seeing Cisco or Coinbase announce a 10% workforce reduction while, simultaneously mentioning their new AI strategy is terrifying.
It's honestly a nightmare scenario for an employee.
Absolutely. But you have to separate the macroeconomic symptom from the technological disease, so to speak.
Hold on. If a company lays off 5,000 people, right,
Yeah.
and then they turn around and buy 10,000 AI enterprise licenses, how is that not a direct replacement?
I know it feels like a very clear equation to the person who just lost their job.
Yeah, they're sitting there like, "Oh, robot took my job."
Right, but let's look at the financial mechanics the article actually references.
Okay, let's hear it.
The tech industry just went through this historic period of zero interest rate policy,
Right.
ZRRP.
Right, ZRRP. Money was essentially free for a while.
Exactly, free money. So companies like Meta and Cisco, they overhired massively during the pandemic boom.
Oh, they were hiring everyone.
They were stockpiling talent simply because they could afford to, and honestly, to keep that talent away from their competitors.
Right, just grab all the engineers so no one else can have them.
Exactly. But now, interest rates are higher, capital is really expensive, and Wall Street is demanding efficiency and profitability.
Not just raw growth at any cost anymore.
Precisely. So the layoffs we are seeing right now, they are primarily a correction to that massive overhiring phase.
Okay, wow. So you're saying AI is basically being used as a convenient cover story for Wall Street.
Well, the article strongly implies that, yeah.
That is fascinating.
Think about it. If a CEO comes out and says, hey, we mismanaged our capital and hired too many people for projects that just aren't profitable.
Their stock would completely plummet.
Exactly. But if they come out and say, we are streamlining operations to aggressively pursue the future of artificial intelligence,
Oh, the stock goes up.
the stock goes up. AI is the shiny object distracting everyone from standard corporate realignment.
Wow.
Now, are some roles being eliminated because AI can do them? Yes, absolutely.
Sure, it's not zero.
Right. But the narrative that these mass tech layoffs are exclusively the opening scene of some sci-fi movie where robots permanently take over all human labor,
Yeah.
that is fundamentally flawed. It is mostly about reallocating expensive capital in a really tight economy.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But even if we accept that the sheer volume of the layoffs is a macroeconomic correction,
Yeah.
the actual nature of the work is still changing, right? The landscape isn't staying the same.
No, the landscape is definitely shifting.
Right, like Meta might have overhired, but they are still expecting their remaining developers to do the work of all the people who left,
Exactly.
and they expect AI to bridge that huge productivity gap.
Which brings us to the core technical thesis of the Technology Review article.
Okay, let's get into it.
And this is the distinction that matters most for you listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
AI is currently reshaping industries by automating tasks, not necessarily eradicating entire jobs.
Tasks, not jobs.
Exactly. And those two words are not interchangeable.
Here is where it gets really interesting, I think, because that distinction between a task and a job is basically the pivot point of this whole reality check.
It really is.
This goes right back to my spreadsheet analogy from the beginning.
Oh, right, the bookkeeping clerks.
Yeah, the task was literally adding columns of numbers,
Right?
but the job was interpreting financial health. The software destroyed the task, but it massively expanded the job.
And we have to look at the underlying architecture of why generative AI operates the exact same way.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, large language models, at their core, are predictive engines.
Right, they just guess what comes next.
Exactly. They are trained on massive data sets to predict the next logical token or word in a sequence. That makes them incredibly proficient at bounded, well-documented, highly patterned tasks.
Bounded task. Okay, give me a concrete example from the professions the article highlighted. Let's take the software developer.
Okay, perfect example. For a software developer, writing a standard sorting algorithm in Python.
Right.
Or, generating the boilerplate code to connect a database to a user interface.
Stuff they do a million times.
Exactly. That is a highly patterned task. It has been done millions of times, and the AI can generate it in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's instant.
But a software developer's job is an unbounded, totally ambiguous bundle of responsibilities.
Wait, explain the difference. Unbounded meaning what?
Meaning a job requires sitting in a product meeting, right?
Yeah.
Listening to a marketing director ask for a feature that completely contradicts the back-end infrastructure.
Oh, the classic conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then having to negotiate a compromise, understanding the unwritten user experience goals of the company,
Right, the stuff that's not in the manual.
and then architecting a system to solve that very unique problem. AI cannot navigate human ambiguity, office politics, or undocumented business logic.
Right, it completely lacks the physical and social context window of the real world.
Completely.
So, when the article says AI is coming for the routine tasks, it means the developer is no longer spending 4 hours typing out boilerplate code.
Right.
They are acting more like a senior editor.
Or an orchestrator.
Yeah.
They prompt the AI to generate the basic building blocks.
Okay.
They review the code for security flaws, which, by the way, AI is notorious for introducing.
Oh, yeah, you definitely have to check its work.
Exactly. And then they integrate it into the larger complex system.
I see.
The mechanical typing is the task. The system architecture is the job.
Okay, let's apply that to the financial analyst because that's another role the article specifically calls out as feeling the heat right now.
Oh, absolutely. Analysts are definitely sweating it.
Because if I am an analyst listening to this right now and I see AI tools that can instantly summarize a 100-page SEC filing
Right.
and run a complex Monte Carlo simulation on market trends, I am probably sweating.
Oh, for sure.
That used to take me a week, and now it takes a machine 10 seconds.
That takes 10 seconds, yeah. But what does the machine actually produce?
A report, right?
It produces a statistical summary based on historical data. It does not produce trust.
Wow.
And business, at its core, is fundamentally built on trust.
That's a really good point.
The task for the financial analyst is parsing 10 years of market data to find an anomaly.
Right.
The job is taking that anomaly, sitting across the table from a nervous 65-year-old CEO who is terrified of a merger, reading the room, understanding that CEOs' personal risk tolerance and legacy concerns, and advising them on a strategic pivot.
So the machine gives you the data, but the human gives the data meaning.
Beautifully said. The machine cannot absorb the emotional liability of a high-stakes decision.
It can't look the CEO in the eye.
Exactly. The article really stresses that AI's impact is multifaceted. It hollows out the middle.
The middle being the repetitive stuff.
Right, the repetitive data gathering, synthesizing parts of our work.
Okay.
But it leaves the complex problem solving, the strategic relationship building, and the contextual judgment entirely to the human.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
Because if you just read a headline that says AI can now pass the CPA exam or AI can write an app, you naturally assume the professional is just obsolete.
Which is exactly what causes the hysteria.
Right. But if you understand the actual mechanics that AI is essentially acting as a superpowered intern handling all your grunt work,
Yes.
the picture changes completely. It is not about replacement, it's about elevation.
Precisely. Elevation.
And this is a really big but, that requires a profound shift in how we actually execute our daily work.
Oh, totally. You can't keep working the same way.
Right. When a landscape shifts like this, and the routine tasks are basically vaporized, entirely new terrain is formed.
Yep.
And the article makes it very clear that the old way of working is dead.
It is gone.
So what does this new terrain look like, and how do we navigate it without getting completely left behind?
Well, the source provides a very clear compass for this, centering on a single imperative.
Which is?
Adaptation.
Adaptation, okay.
While AI automates the mundane stuff, it simultaneously creates new opportunities, new workflows, and entire new categories of roles that literally didn't exist 3 years ago.
Right.
But to access that silver lining, professionals and companies have to consciously evolve alongside the technology.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener, in practice?
Right. How do you actually do this?
Because the mandate, you must adapt, sounds great in theory, but it can also feel incredibly exhausting.
Oh, it's totally overwhelming.
It feels like you are being told to run a marathon while simultaneously building the track.
That is a great way to put it.
So if a tech journalist or an analyst is listening right now, how do they practically ensure they are on the right side of this shift? How do they not dust off their resumes in a panic?
It requires an active shift from competition to integration.
Integration.
The article is very explicit about this. If you try to compete with AI on the tasks it was built for,
Like the data processing.
right, rapid data processing, pattern recognition, summarizing giant blocks of text, you will lose every single time.
Yeah, the machine will always be faster.
Always. It is a losing battle that leads straight to burnout and eventual obsolescence.
Right. It's like trying to out-calculate a calculator.
Exactly. But you can learn to wield it.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's look at the tech journalist.
Okay.
The old workflow involved spending days, maybe weeks, sifting through a massive leaked database of offshore accounts, running simple search queries just to find a recognizable name.
Tedious manual work.
Exactly. That is a task.
Right.
A tech journalist who is integrating AI, takes that same database, runs a sophisticated large language model against it locally,
Okay.
and prompts it to cross-reference those names with public campaign finance records to surface hidden anomalies.
Oh, wow.
The AI does the heavy lifting in minutes.
Which frees the journalists up to do the actual journalism.
Exactly. The AI flags the anomaly, right?
Yeah.
But the AI cannot wait in a parking garage at midnight to build rapport with a terrified whistleblower.
Right.
The AI cannot sit in an editorial meeting and debate the complex ethical implications of publishing a specific piece of data.
It has no moral compass.
Zero. The adaptation the article is talking about is leveraging the tool to accelerate the task, thereby buying yourself more time to focus on the deeply human aspects of the job.
I love that. The source urges professionals to swap out fear for curiosity.
Yes, curiosity is key.
And I think that speaks directly to the psychology of this exact moment in time.
It really does.
Because if your company rolls out an enterprise AI tool, the natural instinct, especially given all the hysteria we just discussed, is to view that tool as your eventual replacement.
Of course, you feel threatened.
You want to avoid it. You want to prove that your manual way is somehow better.
Which is the fastest way to actually make yourself redundant.
Right. The winning mindset, the curious mindset, is looking at that tool and asking, how can I make this thing do the 40% of my job that I actually hate?
Exactly. Hand over the boring stuff.
How can I automate my weekly status reports or my code debugging or my initial data scraping? Because if you are the one directing the AI, you become a manager of agents. You scale your own output.
And the article emphasizes that navigating this transformation thoughtfully is the dividing line.
The dividing line between who?
Between those who thrive and those who struggle.
Yeah.
The professionals who thrive won't necessarily be the ones who can write the best code from scratch or parse the fastest spreadsheets. They will be the ones who are the most adaptable, the ones who treat AI as an execute rather than an executioner.
An execute. I love that. Like Iron Man.
Exactly. It's about actively managing the risk by becoming the person who commands the technology.
And let's be totally honest about the economic reality of this adaptation, too.
Yeah, let's talk about the money.
If you are a software developer who uses AI to essentially do the work of 3 developers, your value to the company doesn't go down.
Oh, no. It skyrockets.
Exactly. You become an orchestrator of systems. But it does mean the barrier to entry is radically changing. The days of getting paid a premium purely for mechanical execution, just knowing the syntax of a coding language or the formulas in a spreadsheet, those days are ending.
They really are. The floor is being raised.
Right.
AI is essentially commoditizing technical execution. But in doing so, it is raising the ceiling for strategic impact.
Raising the ceiling.
Yeah. The source reminds us that technology should serve as a tool for progress, not a persistent cause for concern. But that progress demands continuous learning. It is not a passive event. You have to actively engage with it.
And that puts the agency squarely back in your hands, which is so empowering.
It really is.
We started this deep dive looking at a very menacing set of headlines.
Very menacing.
We looked at the layoffs at tech titans like Meta and Cisco, and, it was so easy to buy into the narrative of an imminent job apocalypse for white-collar workers.
It's a very compelling, scary narrative.
But as we've unpacked the mechanics laid out in this technology review article, we've seen a completely different underlying reality.
The ground is shifting, without question.
Definitely.
The macroeconomic corrections that are masquerading as AI dominance, the crucial difference between bounded tasks and unbounded jobs,
Right.
the hollowing out of routine work. It is a profound realignment of the labor market.
But it is not the eradication of human utility.
Not at all.
We've discovered that AI is essentially acting as a hyper-efficient tool for our most repetitive tasks.
Our exosuit.
Our exosuit. And most importantly, we found that your best defense mechanism isn't denial. It's active integration. It's leaning into the adaptation imperative, learning to prompt the machine so you can free up your cognitive load to do the things the machine simply cannot grasp.
And that leads to a rather profound implication for the future of our economy.
Oh.
Yeah, something that builds directly on the article's conclusion, something for you to think about.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we accept the premise that AI will successfully and cheaply automate the routine mechanical tasks of developers, analysts, journalists, and essentially all knowledge workers,
Right?
it leaves a very specific space behind.
A human-shaped space.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which brings up something for you to ponder long after we wrap up today.
Lay it on us.
If the mechanical execution of logic, math, and syntax becomes a free, ubiquitous commodity handled entirely by machines,
Yeah.
does that mean the purely human elements of our jobs will become the most scarce resources in the market? Will things like ethical judgment, creative intuition, deep empathy, and the ability to navigate unstructured, complex human relationships suddenly become the most highly compensated skills in the future economy?
That is a brilliant thought to leave off on.
It flips the whole fear narrative on its head.
It really does. By stripping away the robotic parts of our jobs, AI might actually force the market to place a premium on our humanity.
Exactly.
If the weather is changing and the mechanical tasks are washing away, those uniquely human traits are your umbrella, your compass, and your map all rolled into one.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a great conversation.
We hope you walk away feeling a little less fearful, armed with a really clear understanding of the mechanics at play, and ready to take control of the tools in front of you. Stay adaptable, keep questioning the headlines, and keep exploring.